everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Cover Band Confidential podcast, the podcast for working musicians trying to figure out what it is they're supposed to be doing. Here in Atlanta, Georgia, I am Adam Johnson.
And here in Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
So we had tried to make an episode earlier this week, and it all went to crud. So this is going to be a Tales from the Gig episode, and where we just kind of regale you guys with what we've had going on, so that you can kind of commiserate with our situation, and we will be back hopefully next week with a fresh new episode with some good stuff.
Yeah. So just we hadn't really chatted about that before starting on this, but I like the idea of having sort of content episodes that might be longer, might be a little more planned out, and then episodes that we sort of declare are going to be more chatty, more looser, probably about sort of our experience and sharing what's going on with us. I think it's a good design.
Yeah, and hopefully this means that it won't require much editing, and it will still be available to you today. That's the goal, at least.
Yeah, we recorded a whole content episode on, what was it, Sunday?
It was Monday night.
Monday night. And a whole, my half of the conversation didn't record for some strange reason. So it was a great rehearsal for when we really do that content for real.
Yeah, it would have been really confusing because you were really doing most of the heavy lifting. So it would have just been an episode of me going,
Yeah. But listen, we rehearsed for a reason, right? So we, in recapping and holding our heads after we saw that it didn't record, we saw some ways to tighten it up and have it be a better episode when we finally get it actually in the can. So
yeah, next week should be a good time. We might be able to get ahead of this actually next week.
Yeah.
So anywho, the last time we spoke, you were prepping for the Clanky Lincoln's first foray into the frat party experience. So, and I was really, I woke up this morning with some feedback coming from the actual performance, which I thought was hilarious. So,
I did. I texted at the break.
Why don't you go ahead and regale us with how last night went, and the fact that you're doing this at 10 in the morning kind of indicates that you had a good time and you had some time to recoup and recover to let us know how it went.
Oh, I feel like I've been hazed. It's 10 in the morning, but it's there's a nap in my imminent future. So you ever have one of those gigs where like on your way to it and the setup of it, there's every potential for total disaster?
Yeah, that's like every gig.
Well, there's always that risk. But so this was our first frat party, and I was down a guy. My co-frontman Justin had an obligation that he couldn't make it, and also has had some kind of rough experiences at frat parties and isn't real interested in that scene. So probably as we do these, we will most likely be a 3-piece, which is fine. We've done that some. It works. It's still recognizably the Clanky Lincolns. So I went into it with his concerns sort of in the back of my head about how rowdy a crowd gets at a frat party and how, the potential for catastrophe caused just by the environment. Plus, this show was an hour away from my home and an hour and a half away from the drummer and bassist. And when I booked it, I knew this. My bassist let me know that he had a family obligation that ended 2 hours before downbeat at a location an hour and a half away from the party. So he'd be showing up half an hour before the show started. And we knew that, and it was cool. He said, I totally can make it, not a problem. I won't be able to participate in setup, which is fine. I can set up the whole rig myself in 30, 35 minutes. So we signed on to that sort of timing risk. I got there at about 2.5 hours before the show starts. I like to give myself plenty of time, and walked in, found my contact, very nice young man. And in fact, all of the guys in this house were really great and personable and had no attitude. They were grateful to have us there. It's very welcomed just walking in the door. And they walked me into the great hall in the frat house, which looking at it from outside, I swear to God, it was Hogwarts. It was like this enormous building that, presumably it's all bedrooms and whatnot upstairs. But what I saw was the Great Hall, and it was not a huge room, but big enough for a dance party of 50 to 75 people probably. And then kitchen and open space behind that, which was also party space. There was a beer pong game that lasted the entire night up in there. And they showed me they have these stage risers that some crafty frat boy built years ago. They were probably 4x8 and maybe 18 inches off the ground. And two strapping young college lads carried out, at my instruction, 4 of them. So he set up a stage that was 8 feet deep by 16 feet wide and pretty much took up the width of the room against one edge. And that so handled my concern about people dancing up on top of us or stumbling over our gear or knocking over. I mean, all of the sort of equipment catastrophes in my mind were totally handled by that.
Yeah, you had said before that we like being on the floor, and I was like, just wait, dude.
Yeah, I know. And so we set up, did a quick sound check, just the two of us, drums and guitar and vocals, and everything sounded fine. It just all sounded good. And then I got the text from the bassist that he actually left his thing a little bit early. He was going to be there even earlier than he said, which was totally great. And he absolutely was there exactly when he said. It was even better than advertised. We started the show bang on time and had a full dance floor, literally from the first note to the last note. And we played stuff that we had a couple like very modern things. We did Feel It Still, Cake by the Ocean. We did our Lady Gaga number, which is a big hit with the ladies. We did our extended crazy I Will Survive. And some classic rock stuff. I was surprised at the uptake I got on Sympathy for the Devil. Anyway, it was a big crowd, fun crowd, very engaged, and in fact, less rowdy than some bar crowds I've played to. And just really appreciative and engaged with us and great to play to. We really had a good time. We really had a good time. Way better than, the scenarios I'd pictured in my head.
Yeah. So what you just experienced was the ideal frat party scenario.
It really was.
The last frat party I played was us on the floor getting beer spilled all over us while we played 311 covers. And then one of the competing frat houses snuck in and pulled the fire alarm because their party was bigger than the other house's party. And I think I might have made $100 off that gig. And I was like, meh, this isn't really for me.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Yeah. It was good. I do think I'm going to be a little choosy about those in the future. There was an opportunity came to us online for a year-end kind of graduation party for a frat that is going to be fancy dress suits and ball gowns and stuff, and it feels like a kind of a different vibe from your average weekend. So we'll probably consider that and charge a premium because it's at the very expensive private college down the road. So that'll be.
Yeah, we've had some inquiries come in for graduation parties as of recent. We just haven't been able to agree on price point, but it's during a busy month, and we're not really hurting for the business. But that it kind of is the season for those events to pop up. So
yeah. I'll tell you the other thing that looked on the way into the show like it might have been a train wreck, and I'm sure you've experienced this during sound check. For part of it, my monitor was not high enough, and I was like kind of shouting over top of the mix. And as we finished sound check, my voice was starting to hurt, even just two sound check songs in. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh God, like it really was. My voice felt, and my throat felt thick and hoarse and dry. And I said to Tony, who's our drummer and who also wears a headset mic and sings some backup and lead on a couple of tunes, so you may need to step in here. It's like, oh, it's going to be the first two words of the song over and over again because I don't know any of the lyrics. I carry a product with me, and this is an endorsement I'm happy to give, called Singer's Saving Grace. Are you familiar with this?
I have not. I've heard of others, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's I get it on either on Amazon or at like Whole Foods. It's an herbal thing. I have it in my hand right here. I'm looking at it, and it includes yerba mate and stone root and licorice and all those things sound tasty. This stuff tastes like death. It tastes like warm death. Oh, it's horrific. But a couple squirts of that and a pint of water, and by the time we got to Downbeat, I'd kind of loosened up, and I was feeling it. She said, probably going to be okay. And then by the time we were 2 or 3 songs in, I was in full voice and doing great.
Gotcha.
But there was another moment in the night where it looked like this could be a complete disaster, and then everything worked out.
We could do an entire episode about like singers stuff. Because singing from at least a musician standpoint is the closest thing to pitching I can think of. It doesn't like you can have a bad day and still play guitar fine. If you have a bad day or you've got something on your mind, singing can be hard because it's a bunch of things that have to work all in conjunction with one another, and most of the time you aren't cognizant of it. Right. But I see like entertainers, secret throat spray and all that stuff. I honestly stopped. I think that there might be a slight placebo effect to those kinds of products. But I will say that, if you have a cup of throat coat tea, it does make your throat feel better. But nothing really beats a good warm up routine and plenty of hydration. Yeah. And having a good mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, that really is true. It's such a physically integrated thing. If you're, it's amazing. Like uncomfortable shoes will mess up my singing sometimes. Yep. Anything that's just physically a little out of kilter has an impact, and a lot of times I can play through it and sing through it, but then you get my performance of singing through it. Mm-hmm. Right, which is not the performance I want to give. Yeah.
Good stuff. And the additional songs you guys picked up for the rodeo theme went over well. Oh yeah. Oh my God. This crowd sang along to a lot of things, but rather than dancing to Tennessee Whiskey, which was the purpose of it, they just stood there and sang it with me. That's including cool. all of the ornate, business that I was mimicking somewhat. I was also kind of making. Wait, you didn't hit that run?
I do. No, that was the one piece I do, because how are you not going to do? You got to do that. Yeah. It's like the singing. It'd be like not playing the first solo and Comfortably Numb note for note.
That's true.
But the rest, I was improvising on somewhat, and they were right with me. They were right with me.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm not sure about slow jams with this crowd, because between that and the other slow tune we did was Let's Get It On, and I expected a lot more coupling up. I think that these are if there are couples in the crowd, they're casual, mm-hmm. and there were certainly some couples dancing, but it was the slow tunes did not pair them off the way I expected them to.
That could be a generational thing, or
Sure.
I guess I like I said, I've been out of the game too long. I wouldn't be able to know. Well, fantastic, man. That's a literally best case scenario.
Yeah, it was very good. It was very good. How about you? You been up to anything fun?
So on Wednesday the previous episode. Actually, no, that's not true, because the previous episode was this week and it didn't happen. I had mentioned to Dan that I had gotten a call to fill in for another band, and we had a light month and I had the time to do it. So I was like, sure, why not? And on Wednesday, I got a call from their band leader and said, hey, I typically do this acoustic duo thing at this venue right by your house. We've had a family emergency pop up and I don't have childcare. Would you be able to fill in? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I was happy to do it. And, so I didn't really have much time to prepare, and I hadn't done one of these gigs in a long, long time. The solo acoustic thing was something I did a lot in college and kind of right outside of school. But kind of fell to the wayside when I got busier. But it's, there's a lot of opportunities for guys to get out there and make a little money. And some guys make a lot of money and they do it, 5 nights a week. So
that's true. I think there are a lot more venues that do solo acoustic than would take a whole band.
Oh, for sure.
I think there's a lot more opportunity out there for that.
Yeah, this particular venue does live music most nights of the week and full bands on the weekends. So I kind of pieced together what I had left. And one of the things that I did have, and I think everybody who does this kind of work should have, is I, at some point, made laminated copies of my song lists. And at the beginning of the night, I just kind of throw them out on tables in front of the performance area. And what it does is it kind of sets up a monetary exchange protocol. So what happens typically, just in my experience, is that if somebody sees a song that they want to hear, they ask for that song, and in exchange for you providing them the song, they feel more obligated to tip you.
Yeah.
So the other guy who was a part of this was game for that. We kind of looked over the list, and he's like, yeah, I know most of these. Let's go ahead and go off your list. And I had one on stage with me, and we started and played some of his songs, and I played some of my songs. And then, the whole thing started rolling. People started walking up and putting the requests in. And overall, it was a pretty good night. One of the things, though, that I had not experienced in a while was that this was a smoking venue. In Georgia, they prohibit smoking in restaurants unless they are strictly 18 and up. And this place was, they actually have a bar area that is completely cordoned off from the rest of the restaurant that is 18 and up and is smoking. And I'm being reminded of that as I'm using the same microphone Wednesday night to record this right now, and it stinks. And all of my gear stinks and my car stinks. When I got home, I literally walked over to the laundry room, took everything off, and walked straight into the shower. Like I didn't even want to bring it upstairs into the bedroom. It was just, that whole thing about having a 15-year-old venue that has been smoking since day one is right. And it's tough on your voice, and it's tough on everything. My eyes hurt, and I was congested, and all of that stuff, and just something you don't really think about. And there were some technical issues with the PA that was brought in, and there were no monitors. So it was just kind of a throw and go kind of deal for 3 straight hours. And we opted to be on our feet, which is, it can be fun because you can move around and puts a little more energy into the whole deal. But by the end of it, my hands hurt and my feet hurt and all of that stuff. And I was like, man, I don't necessarily miss this. Yeah.
I was thinking about this morning. One of the things that I've had more attention on as I, let's be honest, age is sort of setting myself up for physical ease in terms of setup and lugging gear and all that stuff. I think it'd be a good conversation for one of our content episodes about, the things that we've done to make it easier to load in and load out and set up. Because I've certainly had some attention on, when I was 20,
I didn't think about this stuff.
Yeah, no, I can throw subs around like anything, and I still can, but it's not as good an idea anymore, and I pay for it the next morning. Yeah,
I mean, it was Wednesdays, one of my gym days, so I had put in a full hour and a half already. It may have been fine if if it had been like a rest day, or I didn't go so hard in the paint, as they say. But I woke up the next day on very little sleep, and man, just hurt all over. It was great.
Right. All right. That's why I was texting with the band this morning, just making sure everybody got home okay. I said, anybody else feel like he got hazed last night?
Did that one go over well, or did they really laugh? Was it funny? No. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I was texting, so I didn't. They're usually really. You're right. It may have been a sucky joke because usually they're like, "Oh, lol," but I got nothing. So
Yeah, probably because, they're half out of it as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the morning after you get haze is...
Last night was the first full night of sleep I got this week, so I can definitely relate to that.
Right.
Well, I'm glad that everything went well, and you learned some cool stuff, and hopefully that opens the doors for that market for you guys. And I got back out in that mix, and it was cool to play some stuff that I hadn't played in a while. And
what kind of stuff did you do?
Like I said, I had done this primarily in the early 2000s, so it was lots of 90s, and then some classic rock stuff that just doesn't jive with the other bands that I play with. So, things like Pink Floyd and John Fogerty and
nice.
Elvis Costello, like just stuff that you don't normally get to play. In a band situation that people wouldn't necessarily want to hear. And it was kind of like an open mic deal. So we actually had a couple guys come up, and that was my break. It was just weird though, because it happened during the last hour we were supposed to play. So I didn't even have to sing the last song that we did. Somebody else did. Huh. So I got to mingle a little bit. There was people that hung out all night, and I was like, hey, thanks for coming out. I have this other thing, and it was kind of a networking opportunity.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh, every gig needs to be a networking opportunity. That's a whole episode in its own.
I hate networking. I'm not good at it.
Well, it is in my skill set, so we can talk about that.
Good stuff. Well, this is a nice little episode and a good way to wrap it up. So we'll go ahead and call it, and hopefully without much edits, I can get this thing up in the store by lunchtime.
Cool.
All right, man. From Atlanta, Georgia, this is Adam Johnson.
From Greensboro, North Carolina, Dan Ray.
And this has been the Cover Band Confidential podcast. Have a good week.